You're listening to the Tech Addicts podcast. This week I'm still all about Linux. There's news about data centers getting attacked, Spotify killing car thing, Ted enthuses about Pentax cameras, the Samsung Galaxy Ring, and HTC back in the fray. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts podcast. I am Gareth, the host, and this is Ted, the other host. How are you, Ted?
Hello everyone, I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to be back with you on this Sunday the 9th of June. In the north of Wales we have the continued absence of summer. Whoa! And I haven't yet got the air conditioner out. Whoa!
Good grief.
And it's cloudy and rainy and nice temperature. This is just delightful, I love this.
Seriously?
Yes.
It's really hot here. I'm power boiled at the moment.
Really? No.
Yes, in the north of Ireland. We had a lovely day yesterday. I was out cutting the grass and just generally being exceptionally hot. And then my wife said it's a bit chilly at night, which wasn't. She just does that because that's the way she is. She could be in a furnace and be going, oh, it's a bit cold in here, and need to turn the heat on, which she did do, and turned it up to 23, and it was stifling.
Wow.
Things in the fridge were starting to cook. Popcorn was going off in the utility room. You know, it was just one of those things. Can't avoid it.
Yes.
So yes, but yes, the weather is a bit grayer this morning, but it's still quite warm.
That's usually it's older people's houses that are like that, like furnaces. The central heat. Yesterday I was at my mum and dad's house, and I removed some oranges from the fruit bowl because they were just rotten and they had mould all over them, and and it's because it's just so hot in there. They keep the heating up high. Anyway, we're not here to talk about heating. Well, unless it's to do with tech, I suppose.
Well, I just had a realization of what it's going to be like whenever I'm old. Oh my word, the wallpaper's going to be falling off the walls because of the amount of heat that's in here. It's going to reheat the wallpaper paste. It's going to peel off. Ugh, flip. Oh, I hope I die before then. Whew. I'll be cremated before I died. Right, okay. So, moving into feedback, fallout, and contributions. Ian Barton has written in on a handy little utility for, I think you can host this yourself, called TubeSync, which he says, if you have a favourite YouTube channel, you might want to download your videos in case the author or YouTube decides to delete them. He runs TubeSync in a Docker container on his Unraid server, and there are various ways of downloading and running TubeSync, which are described in the GitHub repo. That looks a really handy tool there, Ian. Thanks for the tip-off. I've possibly thought about installing it on my server as well, but I just went, it's a lot of effort to put into something that I've never thought that I've needed, but at least I know it's there in the event that I do need it. Ted, would you use this sort of thing? I
don't. I'll tell you what, at the risk of going off on a tangent here, I don't get this GitHub thing. I really don't. Whenever I go to a link that often Ian's provided and other people, you get this list of folders and files, and there's no real instructions about what you're supposed to do and what you download and what you put where.
See over to the right, it says about, and then below that it says releases. You click there and you get the latest release.
What,
and in this case, I don't think there's a Windows installer because it's not for Windows.
It's got version 0136. So you just click on that if you've got the right operating system, and that's all you have to do, is it?
Well, that's the source code, and then you can compile it yourself and put it onto something, or there might be someone else has done it. If Ian says he's put it on through his Docker container, so where Docker exists, you're able to go and search their repositories to be able to pull across a version of it that runs on Docker. There'll be a YAML file that you can populate and set it up that way, but you won't be able to make any particular way with TubeSync because you don't have anything to run it on.
No. I get that, but I'm talking about the principle of GitHub, and it's just not very layperson friendly. I don't think. I've often thought that, and I look at it and think, what am I supposed to do with all these files and folders? And it's like, wow. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you know someone like Ian or you that can just point out what to do because of being stupid about it, then that's fair enough.
Well, it's more of an inexperienced thing. I always find GitHub quite, and I still do. It's very, very scary looking, and you're wondering, oh, can I do anything with anything here? Is it useful to me? And you look at the conversations and you see people doing pull requests and pointing out issues, and you're like, how do you know what? What does this mean? But if whenever you start learning how to use other operating systems, like Ian has an Unraid server there, I primarily use a Synology server, which is not quite as cool as an Unraid server, but I believe you can install Unraid on a Synology server. Maybe, I don't know, but you can install things that way and have them running in the background in a Linux environment.
Okay.
Because it's topic of the month.
I'll try then to find something on GitHub to understand and download and see how I get on.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to carry on with a little bit of a story about my adventures in Linux this week, because I can't remember if the last Tech Addicts podcast we did, I actually did from Linux. I might have done, but I can't remember if I actually did. But this week I'm doing it fully from Linux. I've got Skype installed on my Linux distro, which I'm not entirely happy with, but I suppose it's there because I have to be able to talk to Ted somehow. And I do like the idea that in the future I'll be using Jitsi Meet for all these sorts of things, because it's just better than Skype.
I think on the last show you wanted to, but you couldn't make Skype work, so you ended up using Windows.
Yes, that's probably the way. I am now, I'd say I'm 95% Windows free. I don't have Windows installed. I do have a VirtualBox running Windows 10 for one particular piece of software that I'll come back to in a minute. But I wanted to say that, just from some of the things that I'm learning and setting up and getting them running and self-hosting and that kind of thing, I'm using Joplin, which is something I find really quite excellent. Joplin is a note-taking app akin to, I'd say it's closer to OneNote than it is to Google Keep. It's got a sort of bigger interface. It can do Markdown, it can do a bunch of different things, and it's crucially it's self-hosted, and it's got clients that run on pretty much every piece of hardware that I use at the moment. So it's well integrated into things. Because I was looking for a note-taking app without having to pay for anything, because Evernote is available on everything, but you have to pay a monthly subscription to be able to get most of the features for that, and to be able to get it to sync between devices, and then be able to back it up onto my server, in case something was to happen, or the whole service was to shut down or to get hacked or whatever. Then I have it all over there, and it's a lot safer and secure. So I whittled it down to Joplin. It's had so many great reviews. People were suggesting Obsidian and a few other names that I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But I got Joplin all set up, and you can do it yourself as well, Ted. You could use it if you decide you wanted to, because you can sync it through OneDrive or Nextcloud. No, I suppose you're not going to run Nextcloud, but you can sync it through various online services as well if you want to be able to take advantage of it and see it grow.
I've installed it on my Windows computer, but the thing that I was expecting to be able to do with it, which I don't appear to be able to do, is use a pen or a stylus. Mm-hmm. You can use a pen or stylus, I think, on the Android version of it. No, you can't. I tried that as well. So there's no pen support, is that right?
I don't think there is yet, but I imagine it's probably on the way, because Joplin's just getting bigger and better. with every release of it. And yeah, I didn't really mind the fact that there's no pen or stylus support at all, because whilst I have a Galaxy Note sitting beside me, I rarely use the actual stylus for note taking at all. Primarily because handwriting is just awful. So I've never done that. And also, where you're in a Windows environment, Samsung Notes doesn't sync nicely with Windows unless you've shoehorned the Galaxy Notes app onto your Windows desktop. You can use OneNote, I suppose, if you want to have that big, bulky application running, which isn't as nice as it used to be. I keep noticing that OneNote seems to be preferring you to go online as opposed to having that nice desktop client that they put out a while ago. So I had to struggle through OneNote Online to be able to take all of my notes and put them into Joplin, which I'm still doing because it takes so bloody long. And being able to sort of clean it up as well, and just merging all of my notes together in Joplin. So I fully recommend Joplin to anyone who has the needs and the brain power to be able to set it all up. It's a decent service. Well, I reckon you'll probably you'll hear of it in the future, and it'll get a few excellent features that you want to take advantage of. So at least you've got an account, I suppose.
It does look very interesting. Like I say, I have installed it on Android as well, and it does look very nice. And looks like it looks like it's very well done, well designed. It's just that pen thing for me. You're right about Galaxy Notes though, Samsung Notes. It's just not Windows friendly at all, which is really annoying.
No, and every note-taking app seems to have some sort of link in the chain that's broken. You know, you just can't get it to work with one thing that you have, like whether it's the Chromebook or your Android tablet or something, or your desktop. You know, there's something there that prevents you being able to get it on everything, whereas Joplin is on everything that I want. It doesn't have pen support, but that's no biggie to me. So I'm now running Linux Mint 24/7. It's my main operating system. I only have a virtual box for Windows, which I am using to access one application, which I can't get a similar thing to on Linux, because it's just it's a tiny little issue that I have. It's an application called Bulk Image Downloader, and I know that I've had a read at some online people who are going, it still exists, and it's like, well, yes, it does. But I find it to be very useful because I preserve and I archive movie images, and I love being able to get them and just be able to hit a button and it'll download everything off a website, you know, because IMDb is a terrific resource for movie stuff, and people seem to be uploading images to it all the time. So if I'm ripping a DVD, I put it onto my NAS, and I've got a little folder inside of that called Image Archive, where I go and get as many images as I can to be able to help populate that and have resources. If I'm running Jellyfin or Plex or whatever, I'm able to go in and pick various different posters or artwork, fan art, and that sort of thing. So I want to just be able to ram it full of as many images as possible. Bulk Image Downloader allows me to do that. And I know that there's the likes of Download Them All and things which works in your browser, but I've never found it to be just as good as Bulk Image Downloader. Where I go to IMDb, I know exactly the page to go to be able to get everything as easily as possible, and it renames everything, puts it into its own little folder and stuff like that. It works really nicely. And I haven't been able to replicate that on Linux, so I need my virtual box to be able to go and do that, and I just do it in sessions. You know, on a Saturday morning, I'll just go and every DVD that I've ripped during the week, I'll go and do all 10 of those movies and fill the folders full of the images that I want. Other websites work fine with things like Down Them All and stuff like that, so I can go and use those, but that for IMDb is the big thing, and it's something that I'm doing at the moment. Won't last forever, but something I'm doing at the moment. Syncing with Google Drive, I've always found is a bit of a problem. Ted's, for example, if I'm sending you some images or files or whatever, I like to just be able to drop them into a folder and then leave them, and they'll scoot across to you. And I haven't been able to find an easy way for that to happen. I'm currently using, it's a paid app that I'm in a trial for, called, I think it's called iSync or something, InSync, INSYNC. I think it costs 30 quid for the license, but I'll probably pay for that because I think it's a darn good application. But unless something else pops up, but it's not something that I've been looking for as a priority at the moment because I've got a trial going on. So I'll work it out whenever it comes close to the time to renew. And my Stream Deck is the only other issue. I haven't managed to get that working very well with Linux. In fact, it's not really working at all.
That's because Elgato don't supply a client to control it, is it?
Yes and no. There are people who have done it. There's one called, I think it's Boatswain or something. Botswain, or I can't remember what. But I haven't been able to get it to work at all. And there's a couple of fan-made streamer open source Stream Deck applications that you can run, but I just haven't looked into it that close. I'm getting everything else set up, so certain things are less priority and more priority, and the Stream Deck, I'll get to it at some point. It's not a priority.
No.
So you go, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you doing this, and to get a fortnightly update on your progress. I'm sure lots of people are really interested in what you're finding and what it's good for, and the bits that are missing, and if it's viable going forward. And I can't imagine life on my computer without Windows, but you know, with your reports coming along as they do, you start to think, well, perhaps I could.
Well, I've just remembered one other thing that I think is a very important point, is my temperatures. I have a little heat temperature down at the bottom right-hand corner that monitors the CPU and the inside temperature of the case. And on Windows, it would idle around 50 degrees. On Linux, it idles around 35 degrees.
Right.
And then under load, I would sometimes see Windows, if I'm, say, re-encoding some 4K or whatever, I'll see it ramping up to maybe 70 to 78 degrees, which is quite high. Under Linux, doing the same thing, maybe hit about 50 degrees. I think the system runs an awful lot cooler under Linux, which also obviously has a knock-on effect with electricity bills and things like that, because it's not drawing as much as much wattage, but also it's not producing as much heat for the room, so it's not heating the room the way that it has done under Windows. So during the winter, it'll probably be a bit chillier in here, so I'll end up having to turn the radiators on, whereas I didn't have to do that when Windows was running on this, because the computer would heat the room.
Yeah, I do find that with my whacking great big computer, that it's in the summer, it's just like makes the room even hotter than it already is.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is definitely that.
Yeah, well, doing everything we're doing this morning, it's sitting at 42 degrees, which is fine for the inside. It's just doing it. I'm running Skype, recording on Audacity, got a few web browsers open, and I think that's about it. Oh, it's downloading a few things in the background, but yeah, it's 42 degrees. That's grand. It'll probably be about 58 or something under Windows, unless it's broken, maybe. It's possible. So, what about you? What have you been playing with?
On the back of that whole Joplin thing, I started to think about my writing on note-taking applications, and then remembering the Samsung Notes application, which you were just talking about, and also remembering that I just quickly to mention that some time ago when I had a phone, a Samsung phone that you can use an S Pen with, I decided to buy a bigger pen to use with it, and I did. I bought the S Pen Pro, and just a quick shout out really. This is it's got a special setting on it to switch between the normal S Pen and the S the Z Fold, and you can switch that because I had the Z Fold in at one time, which is another reason I got it. But the main thing is that it's an all singing, all dancing pen, which normal price is about 99 quid, but I found it in a sale once and got it much cheaper. And it's just, the point I'm going to make is that it's just so much nicer to use than certainly the little pen that comes with the Ultra phones, and even the pen that comes with the Tab S8 that I've got here. It's just bigger and it feels like it's a pen and not a little kind of scribing device that is small to use. I know I've got big hands, but even so, it's just so much bigger. It's so much nicer to use. It's about 9 or so inches long, and it's fatter, and it just is so much easier and nicer to use. So if you find it in a sale and you're into scribing on particularly tablets and the larger phones in the Galaxy range, I recommend it thoroughly. I think it's a much better option.
Okay, that's a top tip there. If you're really into that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd thing having two different pens.
Yeah, but they both talk to the devices. So if you've got my Galaxy Tab S8, you can register them both with the device, so that it knows that you're connecting both of them, and it independently charges. So on the end of the S Pen Pro, you pull the little cap off at the end, and it's got a USB-C charging port in there. It does power itself down after it's not been used for a while, and you press a button to reactivate it and reconnect it. But in my experience, the battery inside it lasts really well. And I mean, I don't know, I suppose when the battery, because it's a built-in battery, I suppose when the battery dies, you just have to send it in and get them to put a new one in. It's a shame in a sense it's not those tiny, what are they, quadruple A batteries. Which would be just about fit in there probably, like the
You and your batteries.
Yes, indeed. Well, the pen that comes for the Pixel book has got quadruple A battery in it, and so you always know that that it's going to last forever because you can just go and buy a new battery. But with that one, it's a bit different. Anyway, I really enjoy scribing on my devices, and mostly for fun, really, not productivity. But handwriting recognition is just so good these days.
It is, yeah. It's one thing that's really coming on. If you've got good handwriting as well, that really makes a big difference.
Or if you haven't.
True, yes, yes. So, moving into news, Mews, and views, we're going to start with a little story that popped up about acoustic attacks that could cause serious threat to underwater data centers. Acoustic attacks. So that's, I'm thinking about Dune 2, where House Ordos would use a sonic tank and it would attack things with sound. Is that essentially what this is? Or am I just barking up the wrong tree?
They've done some testing with these. We spoke about the Microsoft underwater data center, and I think we were saying at the time that is a good target for someone to go and blow up, or even get huge magnets to go and try and underwater ruin the thing. But they've done some tests with sonic action, and on the link here they've drawn a nice little diagram that demonstrates that that if you put a huge speaker outside one of these data centers, then it can kind of disrupt the data and destroy the stuff that's on the drive. And if it's just at the right frequency, they've just demonstrated that they can break it, and so it provides another option in terms of digital warfare or even proper warfare to attack databases and stop people doing what they're doing in terms of data exchange with just sound.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, I suppose sound is king underwater, isn't it? Obviously that's how whales and things communicate, so you can use sound from far away. as well. So it's a very easy thing for them to actually manipulate and weaponize.
Weaponize, that's the word that I was groping for earlier.
Well, let's keep your grouping to a minimum, will we? Yeah.
Tests were carried out on a lab-based water tank in the Lake of UF campus. An on-the-shelf underwater speaker playing music turned to 5.1 to 5.3 kilohertz caused a semi-micro rack server configured with RAID 5 storage to experience consistent throughput degradation. So there you go, there's the technicalities.
What you just said there was tests were carried out to see if a sonic attack could be possible. So essentially, we're inventing some sort of gun that can attack things, but we're testing it to see if it's possible that other people could do this.
Yes.
Right, okay. That's an interesting way of admitting that they're developing technology to be able to attack other data centers.
Indeed.
And pointing the finger to say, well, they could do it to us, so we have to do it. Or we have to test that it's viable.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's
Great.
developing. The Cold War.
Yes, and it'll be certainly a very chilly war at the bottom of the sea. Yes. So, Spotify are going to be killing off the car thing, which was a piece of hardware that they released, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people could install Spotify on their car, which getting rid of it is going to be a bit of an annoyance for certain people. But then I suppose with the advent of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, people are probably using it less and less, and Spotify are really not needing to develop it anymore. Would that be right?
I think that's what the story's about. Yeah, it's that anyone that's bought this thing in 2020 or 2021. It was designed for people that didn't have Apple or Google products to do the same thing. And it talked to a mobile phone, and it played Spotify, only Spotify stuff, through to your car, and you can control it from your phone and blah, blah, blah. But yes, I think you're quite right. They've decided now that everyone's got that, and this is not needed. The issue for me, though, is that you buy a piece of hardware, and how long do you expect it to last for? How long do you expect it to be supported for? We know that mobile phone companies now are pushing those limits up to 7 years for some items, 10 years for Chromebooks, incidentally, and Windows was 10 years and all the rest of it. But actually, if you buy a toaster or a microwave, you get a 1-year warranty with it, usually, unless you buy it from what's it called?
The other people.
That shop that begins with J. John Lewis.
Okay. We don't have them here.
You get 2 years then. But the point I'm making is, though, that how long, if you buy a toaster and it's got a 1-year warranty, is that the manufacturer saying, well, we're only really guaranteeing that you can use this toaster for a year. After that, you're on your own. In which case, they could, I mean, it's slightly different, I know, because it's not functional in the same way, but I'm waffling now. Your turn.
Well, it is inherently different to that, because it's not that they're going to say, well, we're not going to support it anymore. They're actually going to be bricking it at the end of the year. So it's dead. Yes. Whilst it still would function, it's creating a massive amount of e-waste. And they aren't sort of saying to people, well, you can do what you like with it. We're just not, like Windows have done that, where they've turned around and said, right, Windows 7, you can still use it, but at your own risk. Why can't Spotify do that with this? They are just saying, no, it's going to cease to function in December of this year. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Take it out of your car.
And apparently people that bought it paid nearly £100 for it when they did it. But then I suppose you could say that 4 years of use for £100 is that okay? Don't know.
Yeah. But what will people do? Will they cancel their subscription to Spotify and move to a different service?
Yeah.
Or will they have to go out and buy a whole new car in order to get Android Auto? Or do they buy one of those Motorola things that can plug in if available or applicable?
Or a Addicts thing now, which was a news story I posted this week. You can actually run Addicts from your car's screen with this little dongle thingy.
How useful. How entirely useful. Well, one other thing that you can run from your car is, well, I don't know how I'm actually managing to segue with this, because it's actually something else that sticks to your car. Yeah, one other thing you can stick on your car is a windscreen barnacle. This is a new type of clamp that New York City drivers are possibly going to have to tolerate. It's a big sticky thing that sucks itself onto your windscreen and prevents you from driving. It's reinventing the clamp, essentially, because the clamp, I don't know, is there something wrong with the clamp? You can't exactly cut off the clamp terribly easily or weld it off because you'll burst your tires. But yeah, this sticks across the windscreen and prevents you from being able to see where you're going. It reminds me of that whole initiative that they had in Russia. Remember, there was a whole rake of YouTube videos about people who were getting really hacked off with big cars driving illegally in Russia. They would, to avoid the traffic, they'd drive up along the pavement and things like that. And then there was some group that were going out and sticking these really nasty stickers to people's windscreens whenever they did that. And the people would get out of the car and try to remove the sticker, and it would leave a big, papery style sticky bit to the window. Like whenever you try to rip off a sticker from a DVD or something like that, and it leaves paper behind. That's what would happen, and they'd be stuck with that. So it's that kind of initiative, but slightly more friendly and slightly more removable by the company once you've paid whatever fine it is. Tell us about this, Ted, instead of me rambling on.
Well, I think you've probably summarised it already. The big question is, what they're saying is that the person who's got this on their car then goes to an app and then pays the money, and then the company remotely releases it from the windscreen. So the user then takes it off their windscreen and are expected to return it to a drop-off point. But the question in the group came up when I posted this story in MeWe about what the motivation is. Why would someone do that? Why wouldn't they just chuck it down on the pavement once it was off? But I think that the thing is that they would probably take more money than they should, or they would charge you, or take you to court even if you didn't return it. I don't know, but and it also says that if you decide to put your head out the window and drive anyway, then they know that you're doing that, and so the alarm goes off. That a piercing siren goes off if you actually try and drive the car with your head out the window.
Flippin' heck, right? Okay, they've dialed this up to 11 then. Wow.
Yeah. The thing that I thought about doing though was to just remove your windscreen. Remove your windscreen altogether and go back. Buy a pair of goggles like the magnificent men in their flying machines and just drive without a windscreen.
Awesome. Yes, that would absolutely. You'd still have to pay like £1,000 to be able to get your windscreen replaced. That will get you out of paying the £40 charge. But I imagine there's probably some sort, because you've paid the charge to be able to release that. They'll have your financial details, and they'll probably bill you £500 if you don't return this within 24 hours to the service centre. But what happens if you're parked in an area with poor coverage? I was driving home the other day, and I drove through a small hamlet that's close to where I live, and my YouTube music stopped working, and I looked at my signal on my Android Auto, and it showed that I had 2 bars of edge. I was like, what the hell? This used to have 4G, but the network must have gone down or something. Mm-hmm. What happens if that happens whenever you've got this attached and they're going, sorry, we're unable to release the thing from your windscreen, the barnacle from your windscreen, and you're stuck with this for a couple of hours until some sort of signal issue is sorted out?
My guess is that in areas like that, where there's no coverage, there's unlikely to be parking restrictions and no yellow lines anywhere, and these people are not going to be operating in tiny villages anyway. This is going to be a city thing, isn't it?
I suppose, yes. Well, it just shows the picture of the guy. I think it's parked by the beach or something like that.
Yeah,
Looks
yeah.
like that. But also at the same time, you're going to get that really cool Linux cooler dude who's got his laptop there and he's able to hack whatever signal it is that this is giving off. Or if the battery dies, what if like those cars in Dubai, but that are left there, the battery could eventually die, and
No doubt someone will find a way around it, won't they? But
there's plenty of ways around it, I suppose.
in
but
this country,
none of them are practical.
well, in this country, they got via the DVLA the details of the keeper of the car. So if all else fails for them, and you find a way around it, they can just pursue you in the courts, and no doubt they'll win when they do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, so we don't need these. Great. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Spacetop G1 is a new laptop that's reimagining the way that we do things. This is arriving with a Qualcomm Snapdragon ARM chipset inside of it, and with help from the Xreal Air 2 Pro AR glasses, you'll be able to use the laptop without a screen. And it's sitting with an almost $2,000 starting price tag for this concept unit. Ted, tell me this isn't true.
They're after Apple. What's the Apple thing called? Vision Pro, is it?
Yeah,
Or whatever it's called. They're after that with this, obviously. And if you watch the two linked videos that are in the article here, it is very impressive, and you can see that it works really well. But unlike the Apple system, which relies on pinch gestures in the air and moving your hands around and being watched what you're doing in that sense, I don't think this is the same, because part of the kit here is actually a keyboard and a trackpad, and you just see all this stuff in a floating thing in front of you. But I don't think it's quite as smart as the Apple one. But then the Apple one's £3,500, and this one's 2,000 quid. So
That's a bargain at half the price, isn't it?
But yeah, what I would suggest people watch the videos, because it does look very impressive, and I actually would probably use it because all the time that I'm sat in front of my computer, like now, I've got my glasses on, and I need my glasses to be able to see my screen. So if I've got my glasses on anyway, I might as well use these glasses and have all this wonderful tech and not this whacking great big monitor in front of me, and just see it all in this kind of thing in front of me. And I like the idea. I fancy it, and I guess, but I wouldn't want to be out and about with it, and I don't think that's what this is about. This is about sitting at your desk using it.
Yeah. Sitting on a train using this might
Yeah.
mean that you miss your stop a wee bit.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And also, I don't think the people who are working on the train are probably going to help you very much, because you look like such a spaz.
Well, that's the other thing, is the Apple thing just looks ridiculous on your head, whereas the pair of glasses that come with this, the Xreal Air 2 Pro AR, they actually look like sunglasses, and they're not that removed from just an ordinary pair of glasses, unlike that monstrosity that Apple supply, and also HTC and other firms that are into all this.
Yeah.
We need ordinary looking glasses, and these are not that far off.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next story on the basis that you're going to take it, because I've got a cat here who's being a real pain in the ass. And I need to let her into the house so she can get her food, and she's going to be a pain in the ass until she gets her food. So take us away with this camera.
No, yeah, the compact camera is coming back, and the Pentax, or rather Ricoh, in this case, because I think they're one and the same these days, are releasing two new models. The first one is the WG-8, and the second one is the WG-1000. So they're both badged Pentax, and they are these rugged waterproof, solid IP rated, droppable from onto concrete, rugged phones. Sorry, not phones, cameras. Um, and they look really, really like they're going to do the business. Now, the WG8 replaces the existing WG6 that came before it, and the specs are not that impressive in terms of. I mean, there's no 1-inch sensor or anything that you might expect from a proper camera in this day and age. But it does very well in terms of other specifications. It's got a screen on the back, obviously, because most of them do. It's got a 28 to 140 millimeter equivalent 35 millimeter zoom lens, and with an f3.5 to 5.5 aperture setting, and can shoot video, of course. It's IP X8 rated, so strangely not rated for dust and stuff, but just for water, which is fair enough, I suppose. And the other one, which is a WG-1000, has got a 27 to 108 millimeter equivalent 35 millimeter zoom, and that's got an aperture rating of f3 to 6.6. Now, all this just reminded me. Oh, incidentally, they're going to be priced at 400 quid and 250 quidish probably, if we transfer the dollars to pounds by the looks of it. All this reminded me about the fact that I've got one of these cameras, which is the Olympus the Olympus Tough TG5. And when I saw this story and we were going to record this podcast, I went and found it. It's in a drawer somewhere, not being used. And I put it on charge, and it's here in front of me charging up. And it reminded me of the fact that this is pretty much the same, except that with the Olympus one, it's got a 25 to 100 millimeter zoom range, but you can the aperture is better. It's wider. It's brighter in terms of gathering light at f2. At the long end, it goes to 4.9, but at the 25 millimeter end, you get f2 from it, and it's really solid in all the same ways that I've just described. And I don't know why I'm not using it. I suppose the reason I'm not using it really is because I don't take photographs anymore. If I do, I've got a phone in my pocket. But this is a really nice looking device as well, the Olympus Tough TG5. You can now get a updated version of the TG7, and these are priced differently. The new Pentax ones, which I just gave you the price of, are cheaper. The Olympus Tough range seems to be more like 450 quid or thereabouts. But yeah, I mean, the Olympus one also has got a super macro facility, which only pumps out photographs at 2 megapixels, but you can get really, really close with it. And also, around the front lens, it's got this adapter, which I also got at the time, which is a super close-up flash thingy, and that works really well as well. So, loads of fun to be had for anyone that's prepared to or wants to not just take photographs with their phone all the time and do something a bit different. I guess it's these kind of devices are aimed at adventurers and mountaineers and climbers and people out there on mountain bikes and stuff like that. But they're up against it, I think, with phones these days, because as phones just get better and better and better, then the compact camera market is just always in question. But if we listen to what's coming out of Japan, then the compact camera market is coming back. How's your cat?
It's away, but it was fascinating listening to that, and also seeing all the cameras that you're talking about, because there's one thing that I think just looks so good in pictures, and that's compact cameras. They look utterly desirable. I'm getting lost in Amazon at the moment, just going through some of the compact cameras, having worked my way from your Olympus Tough TG5 through to other ones. It's just like, oh, I'd love that, and I'd love that. They really do look absolutely gorgeous, and I want them all.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've got the same lust. And as I said, while you were probably out of the room, my Olympus just sits in a drawer. I never touch it. And I got it out, and it's on charge now, and the battery was completely dead. But
Right.
I've got renewed enthusiasm now. I'm going to try and use it. I'll put it in my
You'll take one picture of your feet later on today and put it back in the drawer.
Anyway, I like these tough ones particularly.
Yeah. No, I think it would be great. Every time you go away on holiday, or at least whenever I go away on holiday, I always take my big camera with me and my phone. I never take anything in between.
Uh-huh.
And I've got all these compact cameras sitting around, not doing anything that could very much be used. But it's like, no, I'll take it next time. I just need these two.
Yeah. I am. I'm going to make an effort to. I'll put it in the box on the back of my scooter, and I'll take it with me, and I shall try and remember to use it.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing. We'll have the adventure, because you did this before as well, didn't you? You were thinking about getting back into 35mm.
Yeah. And then I found out how much it costs to develop the film and how much the film costs in the first place, and got put off.
So Ted's adventures with compact cameras is going to be a feature at the start of the podcast for everyone to tune in to see how he's getting on with his tough camera and if he took a picture this week.
Indeed. How sceptical and pessimistic you are.
Yes, and it's probably quite true. Right, next up is the farewell to solar panels and how there's going to be wind fences that you can put in. So it's a fence that is full of these turbine-y things that zip around as the wind blows through them. These are absolutely terrific devices that I want in my garden straight away. I don't want to have to wait for them. I want them there. I remember looking into something quite recently. I'd seen a news article for a thing called it was like a leaf or something like that. It was a particular type of turbine that you could put on your rooftop, and it would turn and produce more power than 20 solar panels. Yeah. But using both of them together, having the solar panels and having wind power, I wouldn't say goodbye to solar panels. They're very much useful on calm days when the sun is out. But on the days whenever the sun isn't out, especially in Northern Ireland and North Wales, and it's pretty windy, then we'll be able to get a large amount out of these. Yeah. My only problem is that looking at the design of them is that the aforementioned cats that are walking around might not do very well with these and might end up getting blended.
That'll save on cat food.
It will, but that might also mean that children, as young as 2, might also end up getting spewed out the other side in little pieces. So you might need some sort of grid across it to keep kids and fingers out of the way.
They must have thought of that, surely.
Hopefully. The ones in the pictures don't show that. Although they're bloody huge. If you look at that one picture that they have at the top of the website, to the right of it, there is a chair. So they're massive.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realise that. Yeah, you're right. It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll stick that on the cover.
That's going to be as tall as your house.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, and I imagine the council's going to have something to say about that it's not terribly attractive. And that goes ahead of EU targets or universal targets of 1.5 degrees. If it's not pretty, it's not getting built.
It's an interesting principle, though, isn't it?
It is.
And it doesn't need to be quite like that. It could be, you could have it all over your roof, or, just the principle of wind turbines. At the moment, you can go to Amazon and buy a thing you stick on your chimney, which is basically a fan, a rotor that gives you electricity. But I guess the difference is the level of efficiency, and that's probably why it's so big, because in order to get what you need from it to do anything useful, it's got to be big. Don't know.
Well, where a regular house is, a chimney is an unused resource now. Very few people have fuel-based fires. So they'll have some sort of, probably a gas fire, something like that, installed at the bottom of their chimney. So it's a big hole that leads up to the roof that could be full of wires and conduits and things like that coming down from the likes of these. And I see people who put solar panels up on their roofs, and they've got wires coming down the side of their houses to the batteries that are there. The chimney is an unused resource, and I think having something along the top of your roof, or one of these, or whatever that other one I was talking about, babbling about earlier on, the Leaf or whatever it was called. It had something. It was a funny little name beginning with L. Having something like that up there with the wire coming down to under your house, and a battery there, that would just alleviate so much in the way of cable management and stuff like that.
Yes, indeed. Except that houses being built now don't have chimneys, of course.
No, but they could quite easily change that. I suppose it is a hole just to let rodents and water in and stuff like that. But tried and tested over the years, so the chimney's good. Right, okay, so moving on to the Wearables Watch, where we've got quite a bit to talk about. HealthyPi. What is HealthyPi, Ted?
Well, I thought you'd know. It's
I'm not healthy, and
okay.
I do like pie.
The Raspberry Pi thing, and the GitHub thing, and the Linux thing, and the whole non-Windows, non-app, non-mainstream situation has come up with this thing, which a watch, a wearable that is designed to do the same kinds of tracking of movement and exercise and health-related stuff in your body, but in a completely open source way, so not tied to the likes of Samsung or Google or whatever else. And I was hoping that you might understand how you get the data from it. That's what I couldn't quite get to with this. So it's got a screen on the front of it, and perhaps that's all you get is on the screen. I can't imagine
USB Type C.
USB Type C is to charge it, isn't it? But if it plugs into a computer, then what sort of computer? And in order to get the data out of it, I can't see it syncing over the air like in the way that clever Samsung systems do. And I guess that from what you're saying, you haven't understood that either.
Well, I've just realised that there actually is a link here to the crowdsourcing page on crowdsupply.com. And for $250 you can buy the fully assembled HealthyPi, which has a USB Type-C fingerprint reader and SWD to USB programming adapter. So it's very much not a product that's going to be as nicely designed as anything from Samsung. It's a tinkerer's dream, I suppose, for someone who's into their fitness. If Ian Barton's going out for a run in his wellies, he might be able to take this with him and be able to analyze his fitness on the go.
I still don't see how you get to see the data though, apart from on the watch face.
Well, I imagine it does hook up to a computer somehow, but it's probably not as easy as being able to connect to Wi-Fi. I'm desperately looking through the specs here.
Apparently, there's a companion app called OpenView 2, which the HealthyPi's firmware is based on Zephyr RTOS, and there's a companion app called OpenView 2, but it doesn't say. Oh yeah. Oh, hang on. It does say. It says it's available in Android, macOS, Windows, and Linux operating systems. So presumably that app then runs in. Right. Okay. So they are hooking it up with other systems, so you can get the data from it. This is really well researched. This item, isn't it?
Well, it has Bluetooth on it as well.
Ah.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a BLE unit, which is the Bluetooth Low Energy standard, so you will be able to hopefully get this working with an app somewhere along the lines.
Anyway, interesting thing perhaps for the future if it takes off and Ian Barton gets one, he can tell us all about it.
Yeah, quite right. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for doing that for us. Next up is the Samsung Galaxy Ring, which you'll be able to hopefully get a bigger battery.
Hurrah!
If you've got larger sizes.
Hurrah!
I think Samsung's missing a trick here as well, where they could have a particular type for gentlemen as well.
Yes, enough of that filthy talk. I'm very pleased that us fat people actually are ahead for once, and we'll get a bigger battery in our Samsung Galaxy Ring because it's physically bigger, and that, of course, that makes sense, doesn't it? They're talking about the rings being available from size 5 up to size 12, but there is talk of a size 13. Um, and obviously, I mean, when I use one of those ring thingies for my fingers, I'm almost off the end of the Z scale. I think I just about sneak into the Z because I've got such big fingers.
Hmm.
And so if I got one of these, I'd have the biggest battery in the world. Have you
Terrific.
got
Yes.
fat
Well,
fingers?
I don't think I do particularly. They're probably not the same size as they used to be whenever I was a svelte, gallbladder included fitness fanatic, but times have changed.
Right. Anyway, yeah, bigger batteries for bigger rings, which obviously makes sense, but it seems that Samsung are kind of committing to that and saying, well, what did you think? Of course there will be.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting benefit, and I hopefully people will aspire to get a bigger battery in their ring and put on loads of weight.
Yes, enough of that talk.
Okay, moving on. One UI 6 is going to be launching with some AI features on your Samsung smartwatch,
Oh,
and you'll be able to
yeah.
get this on smartwatch 6, 5, and 4.
That's
Very
the news, is that good old Samsung are supporting these changes right back to the fourth generation of their watches, which is really impressive. They're doing really well. The new AI health features include energy scoring, wellness tips, new sleep indicators in Sleep Score, new aerobic threshold, anaerobic threshold, heart rate monitor, blah de blah de blah, workout routines, and race. Race helps users stay motivated and track current and past progress when running or cycling. Okay, so there's a bunch of AI features, but the news is that when One UI 6 watch arrives, it will also be backdated to Watch 4. So well done, Samsung.
You know, I always think that whenever it comes to the world being concerned about the idea that AI is going to, revolutionize the way we do things, and that big tech companies know far too much about you, it makes me think of just those little things, like, say, for example, on Google News, where you decide, I don't want to see anything about anything from GB News. I'm not a big fan of GB News. So I say, don't show me this.
Yep.
You'd think that the tech giants, with all their knowledge and all their big programming and big AI features, might be able to go, oh, he doesn't like GB News. Let's not show him GB News anymore. But no, they don't. You just get bloody GB News everywhere. So, it feels like, oh, I'm really worried about Big Brother watching me and knowing all of my habits. But they don't listen to it, and they're not noticing it, and they're not being able to implement the things that you actively want to change into the changes. It is just down to, no, we're being paid by GB News for you to see some of their articles, so you're going to bloody well see them.
Interesting you should say that, because that was one example that I told Google News that I did not ever want to see anything from GB News again. And ever since I've done that, I've never seen one thing in Google News. However, I think the way it works is that if you then subsequently are seen in the algorithms to be going to GB News on your computer, say, then the fact that you've done that gets
Undoes it.
yeah, it gets fed back into the system and say, well, perhaps he's changed his mind then. We'll try him just once with GB News again and see if he once again says no thank you. So there's a lot of kind of joined up algorithmic thinking going on, I think, behind the scenes.
Or just undoing any goodness that could possibly be there. Yeah, it's a bit too complicated for its own good.
Yes, probably.
Right. Nasty.
Whoops.
Nasty.
Right.
Yeah. Right, moving on to where are we next? I've lost my place. We're staying with Galaxy, aren't we?
Yeah, this is the new Watch FE, which is not official, but loads and loads of leaks about the presumably cheaper watch. They're talking about it likely costing, I think I saw $200 somewhere, as opposed to the 300, 350 that the main ones are. So Galaxy jumping in. I'm not quite sure really what's going to be different about it. It looks like the design of the Watch 4, so you could argue that it's two generations back. But the buttons look the same, the strap looks much the same, the OLED panel looks just the same. The chipset is a bit older, or not so good, I suppose. And if you're
It's Super AMOLED as opposed to OLED.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And if you're in America, you can get this bundled free with a Galaxy Watch, by the looks of it, by an operator, with a phone. Sorry. But apart from that, I don't know if you can, but I can't really see what's different about it. Maybe it's just not made of such good materials or something.
Yeah, or maybe it's got more advertising on it or something. It's 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, 16 gigabytes of internal storage. There's an optical sensor. Yeah, it might have a smaller battery, if anything.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Although it says 30-hour battery life. The 1.5 gigabytes of RAM is smaller because I think my Watch 5 has got 2 gigs of RAM, or is that the 6? No, I think the 6 moves it up to 2 gigs of RAM. But honestly, my Galaxy Watch is absolutely fine. The 5 series and the 4, you really don't need a new. Anyway, FE Fan Edition, make it cheaper. I'm all for that.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and it's just using last year's tech, getting most bang for your buck.
Yep.
All right, the last one is staying with watches. Is the Wear OS is bringing Google Home controls and PayPal payments to your wrist. I think it's utterly bonkers that Home wasn't already there, and being able to turn off lights in your house wasn't doable from your wrist in the first place. It just feels like that should have been natively put in there by Google at one stage. But it's coming now. Now that I think most people are ditching their smartwatches.
You can install it. I'm looking at it now, and on my Galaxy Watch, it's there, but I had to install it. I think this news is that they're going to bake it in, isn't it?
Yeah. It should have been there, and it shouldn't have left any steps out for anyone. I do like Google Home whenever it works, and being able to have it on your wrist would just be so much better than having to, at night when you're wanting to turn some lights off, you can do it from your device, but if your device is in another room, you don't want to have to say it out loud. It's very loud whenever it responds to you. And that's one nitpick that I have with Google Home, is that there isn't any sensible controls after midnight. For example, you were to say, turn off this light, and it's 11:30 at night, and it'll blast back at you at whatever volume it was earlier in the day, really loud, at the wee hours of the morning.
Right.
So it's just, it still feels half baked, and I think Google need to pay more attention to it rather than all their AI shit that they're doing at the moment.
The other bit of news here is that they're going to bake in PayPal as well. Now, again, I'm just searching on the Play Store on my Galaxy Watch, because I thought you could already get PayPal, but no, I can't find it. I've searched in the store and it's not there. So you should be able to. I can't imagine pay in retail outlets, can you, with PayPal? Using your watch, but you could certainly send money to other PayPal users, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not that it probably has been there. It's been removed to be reconfigured. I find they do that a lot as well. They won't like the implementation of it beforehand, and they'll just remove it, spend a couple of months without it, or maybe a year without it, and then they'll bring it back in some sort of more manageable way.
Oh yeah, here it is. They're going to bake it into Google Wallet. That's the PayPal news.
Right, okay.
So it's going to be inside Wallet. Okay.
great.
Right.
All right, moving on to the phone zone. We're going to start with the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that more Android phones are going to get an upgrade for.
Hurrah.
What can they do with the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor that you might already have?
Get a faster reading than optical, but not faster than capacitive. The ultrasonic fingerprint scanner I've always found on the Samsung devices to just be the best. And some people disagree with that. They think that optical has come up alongside it now, but I disagree. I still think ultrasonic is best. And the news here is that instead of relying on the Qualcomm chipset to run that, there's another firm getting in on the action called something beginning with G. Who is it?
It's not Google. Goodix.
Goodix, that's it. And Goodix is setting itself up to make ultrasonic scanners cheaper than Qualcomm can do it in the way they do it, and so make it available to mid-range and lower devices. So that's a good thing. Well done.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not that takes off. If it doesn't sell, we won't be able to put our finger on why. Right, the HTC have teased a new phone launching on the 12th of July, which is a whopping 3 days. That's what, Wednesday? From today's the 9th?
Yeah,
10th,
we spoke
11th,
about this on the
12th.
show
Yeah,
before, and we knew it was coming. I think the news here is that the date is firmed up, isn't it? I was looking at the the HTC U23 Pro specs from last year, and actually, it's. I think we probably mentioned it before. It's actually a nice looking phone. I don't know if they've kept it up to date or their promise for updates or whatever, but it's got a micro SD card slot and it's got a 3.5mm audio jack, side-mounted capacitive fingerprint scanner, wireless charging. There's an awful lot to like here about it, and it's got the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 chipset. I think it's a nice looking phone. It's just a question of whether people are going to trust HTC going forward, having apparently abandoned, largely a few years ago, the whole kind of smartphone market.
Yeah, but I suppose that's just the thing, isn't it? Whenever a company falls from faith. But this will probably be the best time for you to get on the HTC bandwagon, because they're going to do their best to ensure that people start buying their devices again and give them that security that they need.
Sure.
And whenever they get, a larger piece of the pie, then they can start going, screw them. They can just buy a new phone.
Indeed. The
yes, totally. So, Samsung has accidentally confirmed the design of their new foldables. How did they do that? What?
If you look to the linked in the linked article here, there's a photograph of the two, the Fold 6 and the Flip 6, and actually, much as I dislike the whole Apple lookalike thing, they do look really nice. I think that the flat edges and the titanium looking kind of casing, don't quote me on this, and if Steve's listening, I'm not saying this, it actually looks really nice, and I think it's a nice design feature, copied as it may be. Perhaps I'll have to eat my words.
No, I fully agree. I'm rocking the S24. I do love taking it out of its case and just marveling at it, because it's where I wanted phones to be, with that metal outside and just feeling nicely milled or whatever. It does feel like a tough device that you'd never want to drop, but we're almost at a place where you could use it without a case, because they're not plastic anymore, and these do look absolutely gorgeous. Stepping the S24 build out into foldables and things like that, and making bigger devices, and even the S9 as well, the Tab S9 just feels good, and they have cases that accentuate the way they feel in the hand, so that you can actually feel the tablet and you're not reliant on the case. So I'm very excited about these, and having this kind of build quality might actually really help them, because I think the Fold ranges are not doing as well as they did initially, and people are progressing back to the more attractive S24s because they're cheaper, and they do everything that the Folds do, just not with as much screen real estate.
Indeed, I agree with you. Everything you said.
Fair enough. Since birth, everything I said. Gemini app is now out for Android and iOS in UK and Europe. Ted, have you been using it? Are you excited about it?
I have, and I did some testing with it before. My biggest complaint is that there's no Gemma Chan to listen to. There's one voice which is not the same as my Gemma Chan in Google Assistant, and it's a bloke's voice. It is a British voice, to be fair. It's not an American voice, but apparently they're working on having different voices for it. Now, I've been doing some testing with it, and it's supposed to be. It's very limited. It doesn't give you results based around anything, in my experience, of specific information about my accounts, except what's in Gmail. I'll give you an example. I asked it to, when did I blog about a film starring Florence Pugh? Okay, that was my question, and I was expecting it to go off to my blogger and find that in my blog, but it's not looking in there. It's also not looking in my calendar. Now, apparently in America they have got it looking in calendars for data, but a lot of this is the questions here are based around my actual personal stuff, my Gmail account, my Google Drive account, my Google Docs, and what I've actually created. Now, the answer to this question, sure enough, it says, you blogged about 2 films starring Florence Pugh. A good person, because you mentioned this film in an email to your sister in December 23. So it told me when that email was, and that's where it's got its data from. Don't worry, darling, you mentioned this film again in an email to your sister, January the 6th, 23. Now, this whole Gemini thing seems to be, as well as trying to be a general Google Assistant, if it's supposed to be drilling down into my account data and tell me all about what's going on with me. I'm particularly unhappy that the calendar thing's missing, because I said to it, when is my next dental appointment? Okay, and
Okay.
in my calendar I've got my next dental appointment, but all it said to me was, we don't know when your next appointment is, but we see in an email that your last appointment was on last Friday. So again, it's just going out to my email and it's scooping up whatever it can find from email and nowhere else. Now, this is separate from, as I say, the general stuff like how tall is the Eiffel Tower and all that crap, or who won the cup final in 1976. Hurrah! Those kind of questions they work and that they're fine, but it's a work in progress, and I want Gemma Chan back, and I want it to work better, and I'm sure it will soon.
Did you say 1976?
Yes, hurrah!
1966?
No, the FA Cup in 1976.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
Southampton won it. They beat Man United, and I was there.
You were in Southampton?
No, at Wembley.
Oh, right.
Up the Saints. Those are the days when I used to like football.
Don't worry, folks. I'll cut them off in a minute. Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, and I wonder if it is down to Google. I would say Google's half-baked calendar, because calendar and contacts have never been particularly good on Google. I've always felt that Microsoft had the upper hand whenever it comes to managing those sorts of things. But also, calendar has a bunch of other calendars in it where you can link in different calendars. Yes. And Gemini might not have authority to be able to, or permissions to be able to access those other calendars. So you might have put the appointment into a calendar that it can't natively communicate with.
I've tested it with just my own calendar as well, my events calendar, and it doesn't find anything. It's just not looking at that data. And Blogger is Google's own software. Why isn't it looking in there? And
Has it not been sunset?
eh? No, no,
Blogger?
no,
No.
not at all. It's still going. I use it all the time. Um, for all my blog posts, obviously.
Aye, but I thought it was on its way
No.
out. I thought I got an email recently saying that.
No,
No.
I've researched that because I back up all that data just in case that happens, so I keep an eye on it, and everyone seems to think that so many people use it, they're not going to ditch it. But those are their own tools, and they should be looking in those, and they should be looking in Drive and Google Docs and all that stuff that I've created in my Google account. And as I say, apparently in America, a lot more of that stuff is working inside Gemini. But the news here is that until this week, we didn't even have Gemini on Android and iOS, but that's arrived this week, and you can install it now, and you can choose between sticking with Gemini or going back to Google Assistant. In the settings, there's an option for either one, so you can swap and change between the two.
Okay. And I see that there's a big list of all the areas that this is now available in around the world, right down to the smaller islands and things like that. So you can get the Gemini app in most locations, I'd say.
Even in Fiji.
Even in Fiji and St. Lucia. Hello, Arnold. Yeah, right. Cool. So, Lenovo Legion Go Lite is being tipped to be coming at some point, which is a new handheld devicey type thing that isn't going to be a direct successor, but maybe is something a little bit lesser than what they are putting out with the Lenovo Legion Go.
I can't remember what we said about the Lenovo Legion Go. Did we think that was a good one or not?
I think it looked pretty good, but it's the one that burns through SD cards, isn't it? I think the SD card is under one of the thermal jobbies. So the Lite will maybe not have an SD cards in it or something like that.
Wasn't that no, that was the ROG Ally, wasn't it? Oh no, perhaps you're right. I can't remember now.
I can't remember either. They're all much of the same. Buy a Steam Deck instead. I think it's the general advice. Yeah, grand. So moving on.
Okay then. 699 quid. They reckon that's going to be. No, 628 quid if it arrives.
Great.
Yes.
That's
and if you trust Lenovo to keep it up to date.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Tetris is now the greatest game of all time. Some people say, and it's 40 years old now. 40.
Have they purposely ripped the frontage off of that Game Boy just so to make it look old?
No, the glue goes after a while. It same happened with mine, and oddly enough, that picture that they have on this website, my Game Boy is currently sitting in a display cabinet, and the screen has fallen off in the same way that this one has. And there's a copy of Super Mario Land 2 on one side and Tetris on the other, because those are the two games that I bought with it out in Alaska one day from a second-hand shop.
I can't believe it's 40 years old.
I can't believe they've got that set up when I've got exactly the same thing over there.
That's weird, isn't it? Have you got an American yellow school bus behind it too?
No, not yet. I'll try and get one of those at some point. I've got a Palm, a Palm Pocket thing, one of the Palms there. But 40 years old is old Tetris, and well, obviously the Game Boy as well. And I would actually encourage people to go on to, I think it's Netflix, and watch Tetris, the movie, to see how that all came about, because the story behind Tetris is deeply fascinating. It sounds that it couldn't be as exciting as it is, and I'm sure that they have pepped it up for that movie, but it's worth watching because it's a cracker.
Yeah. And this article we're linking to actually also goes through quite a lot of the history of it and where it's come from and where it's going to and why this and that happened, in summarising the 40 years. We spoke about the Game Boy before and in Harkback, so we won't bang on about it too much, but I do remember sitting in my loft because I'd bought a Game Boy and Tetris, and I wasn't supposed to spend the money, and my wife would have been at the time would have been fuming with me. So I snuck it up in the loft, and I used to go and play it up there.
And she'd be walking around, and you'd turn on Music B just to throw her off the scent.
Oh dear, great days. So that must have been 40. How many? What's 40 years ago? 84, 94.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1984. That, and I think it was. No, it
Same
was.
year as Temple of Doom.
I thought that the Game Boy came out in 88. How can it be 40 years? Oh, probably because it was on other platforms first. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Tetris.
Okay.
Tetris wasn't just.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes, because they decided to license it from the German or the Russian developers.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the movie that I was banging on about. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I remember that now. Okay, so Twitter alternative post news, which is something that I managed to get into quite recently because it was only last year, so they opened it up for people to actually go in and use it. Is shutting down. Great. So you've been waiting for so many years to be able to get into it, and they shut it down soon after.
Oh yeah, there was a waiting
Why?
list. Wasn't
What
there?
happened? There was.
I've forgotten about the waiting list. They just decided that there's too much competition out there and they can't do it. This is not any normal kind of social network. This is publisher focused, inverted commas, and it's a writing forum, a bit like Medium. They were trying to attract the Medium crowd and get people to publish stuff, and it is a shame. I used it now and again and had a look at it and posted a couple of things, but and also it took them ages to get an Android app out. Eventually
That's
they
true.
did, but up until then you had to have this kind of web link to use it in Chrome on your phone, which is quite annoying. Anyway, so I mean I won't miss it, but I'm sure some people might.
Well, I can move from that to Blue Sky now because it seems to be
Yeah.
the social network of choice.
Yeah. Is that publisher focused?
Don't know.
Can't remember.
It looks exactly like Twitter used to,
Yeah.
or X used to, or a social network formerly known as Twitter. I stand corrected. Right, okay, so Microsoft has reopened Windows 10 Beta
Hurrah!
for the obvious reason, because people are using it in VirtualBox to be able to run bulk image downloader, it would appear. Ted, what could we get out of Windows 10 Beta now that's worth exciting? Or is it just people moving away from Windows 11 because of recall?
That's not the point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The point
Stand outside.
the point is that this is a chink in the armour. We reckon the article reckons that Microsoft may be having second thoughts about the cut-off deadline and the way in which people that want to stay with Windows 10 are going to be treated going forward in terms of paying for support or not support for the coming years. And there's confidence in some sort of U-turn growing by the day. The current figures apparently are that 70% of Windows users are still using Windows 10, and 20-something% are using Windows 11, with previous versions making up the difference. And there just seems to be a growing confidence now that Microsoft need to think again, and at the very least open up the support to ordinary people, not just business users, for the 1, 2, 3 years going forward after it ends, and keeping that cost down, making it 10 quid or something instead of 150 quid per year to keep it going, and opening up the beta channel, reopening up the beta channel for Windows 10 is just a sign that it seems that when Microsoft are at last taking the option seriously, that Windows 11 may not be what everyone's going to do. They're all going to go to Linux like you.
Well, there was some statistics that I read this morning, and it's a weird statistic to be able to say, but it does show the ever so slight trend. Whenever you break down Steam, okay, so Steam, the gaming system, 96% of the users of Steam run Windows. It doesn't matter what flavor of Windows, but it's a Microsoft operating system. 2% run Mac OS and 2% run Linux.
Right.
But the difference here is that it used to be, maybe this time last year, it was 1% Linux. Now, I know the argument is that, well, Steam OS is Linux, and every Steam Deck runs Steam OS, so it's increased by 1%. But that means Microsoft's noticed that, or will have noticed that 97% they might have had previously market share of Steam OS has now dropped down to 96, which, in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot of people. That is an awful lot of people, and for they know that there's a lot of, they've had to do a big U-turn on the whole recall thing. As soon as that was announced, people went bickies about it, and people started jumping ship. It certainly fueled my full movement from Windows to Linux straight away, and I've been chiming on about it, much to most people's annoyance, on this podcast since then. But I do see that Microsoft could quite easily lose quite a bit of footing, and whenever people start jumping ship and moving on to other operating systems, moving to Mac OS isn't an option for most laptop users because Mac OS isn't available on most bits of hardware that would run Windows at all. So jumping over to something like Linux Mint or Ubuntu or Zorin or something like that, which is a much more attractive way of doing things, and because Linux is becoming much more usable by imbeciles like myself, they're on a slippery slope that could quite easily turn against them, and they've seen this before. They have. They've seen people moving over to Mac and back to Windows whenever they're buying new computers. And I'm not saying that all of a sudden there's going to be a massive movement toward Linux from Windows. That's not going to happen for a good long time. But it's feasible that they could lose a lot of people. 1% is a lot of people.
Yeah, especially if they force people to use cloud services and not let them use Windows in a kind of traditional localized way on their machines. But the thing is, though, that there's so many people using Windows out there that they just can't ignore this. They can't ignore. I mean, I haven't got the figures in front of me of how many active Windows users there are, but apparently the 70% on Windows 10.
It's more than 37. I know that. It's more than 37 users.
There must be billions. No, perhaps not.
Well, you are right. There probably are billions. I did a count before, I think the last time, whenever there was a statistic about how many computers were actually on Windows 10. I myself have 3 work computers, and then I've got my home computer, and then my wife has two laptops, one work, one non-work, and then my son has a desktop. So that's roughly about 10 computers that I have access to, that I would be responsible for upgrading to Windows 11. And only, well, actually, one of them is on Windows 11 now. No, 2. My wife's is. My son's still on Windows 10, and all my work computers are still on. No, I stand corrected. My work laptop beside me, it upgraded 2 weeks ago. That's right, to Windows 11. As awful as it is. But, they were all Windows 10, right up until quite recently.
Apparently there's 1.4 billion monthly active devices running Windows 10 or 11. That was in 2022.
But people have a laptop and a desktop.
Yeah. I've got 4 Windows computers.
And how many of them are Windows 10?
1.
Uh-huh.
So 3. My other 3 are Windows 11. But the one that I use day in, day out, the main one, is Windows 10. And as we've discussed before, it's going to cost me 500 or 600 quid to replace the parts in it to get it onto Windows 11. I really don't mind going to Windows 11. It's no problem to me. except that cost, and I'd rather spend that money on something else, frankly. And if
Yeah, it'll be free for you to move the.
yes, that's true enough. But Windows 10. Anyway, the point about this is that it
Yes.
may be that they're thinking again about the length of support that Windows 10 gets, and if they are, then hurrah!
Hurrah! Hurrah indeed. Well, let's give a big hurrah for the Google Gallows and Chrome Corner section, where Ted, you can ramble on till your heart's content.
Okay, Google is bringing loads of AI features to their Plus Chromebooks, as we know. The one that I was testing this week is Magic Editor, and I posted in the group about it as well. And I took a photograph down at down at the Crown Bowls Green.
Oh, right, okay. Hanging out with the ladies, were you?
Yes, indeed. And I decided to test this out on the Chromebook, and sure enough, it worked beautifully well inside Google Photos. Magic Editor worked. I removed one of the people playing Crown Bowls, and it did leave a shadow on the ground, but essentially it worked as well as it would on a phone. So that's working really well. And a lot of the features that are the AI features that Google is bringing across the board are going to be available to the Chromebooks that are not the Plus ones as well. So there will be some unique features, but a lot of them will still be supported in old ones as well. Google Play Store quietly rolls out a feature to uninstall apps remotely. This means that when you go to the App Store, you can then choose the device that is logged into your account that you want to manipulate the apps from. So if you happen to have one phone with you and you want to remove an app from your tablet, there's a drop down now that says which device are we talking about. You select the tablet device on your phone, and then you're then looking at the stuff that's been installed on your tablet, and you can then manipulate that those apps, take away or whatever, or install whatever you want from that particular device, which is a move forward. You can try the Chromebook app mal out now. That's in Chrome OS 125. And doesn't require a flag to be thrown, and that is a front end for it's basically a Play Store kind of environment on a Chromebook or in Chrome OS, which it focuses in on applications that are available and work play nicely with Chrome OS on a Chromebook. So it kind of isolates stuff that is going to not be looking pretty, and that's available now. Link in the show notes if you want to play about with that, but you need to upgrade to Chrome OS version 125 to get that. But that's a stable channel. You don't need to be in developer mode to do that. Google Messages is rolling out a 15-minute RCS edits feature, which is a complete joke because even though you've got 15 minutes after you send a text message to someone or an RCS message to someone, in order to edit it in 15 minutes, the person you sent it to also has to have this feature turned on and using RCS. So that's a bit of a joke, really. And the last one is that a reminder, really, that multiple calendars in quick settings is still behind a flag. So if you want to use that, and I find that really useful. So you know what you were saying earlier about multiple calendars in your Google account? Well,
yeah.
On your Chromebook, without this flag being thrown, which again I'll put in the show notes, you can only see your events calendar, your own one Google Calendar. Throw this switch, and on the pop-up in the quick settings, you can then see all of your multiple calendars. I think it's up to 10 calendars, but the reminder here is that it is still behind a flag. So even if you're on version 125, you won't see it unless you throw the flag. So check that flag in our show notes and you'll be able to get it. Shall I say it? It's multi-calendar-in-quick-settings.
Cracker.
Anyway, that's it. The Chrome Coroner is complete. Anything you want to pick up on?
Just having a quick look at that app mall. I'm quite intrigued by that. That you know that it's not the web store, wasn't it? It was called. It's now the app
Yeah,
mall.
because it's not just PWAs; it's actually apps that, including Android apps, that will play nicely with the widescreen of a Chrome OS device.
Yeah, that's something they've needed for quite some time,
Hmm.
to be honest, and as a trustworthy one as well. Because it always felt like the web store, you could end up installing something that you didn't really want on your system, and anyone could post anything there.
Yes, indeed. And also, it just reminded me, I saw an image in that article of the Gemini thingy in the dock at the bottom of your screen. Well, if you're in the UK, dear listener, you can't get that yet, so don't try. You can only seem to get that in America. They haven't updated. And I've got one of my Chromebooks I've got on the developer channel as well, and it's still not there. So Gemini has made it to Android, but obviously not yet to Chromebooks or Chrome OS devices, even if you've got Android stuff logged in and working on it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we'll move into the bargain basement where we can get some exciting little bargains for half the price. Ted, start us
Oh,
off.
before we do that, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to a page in DP Reviews website called Throwback Thursday. Because in terms of being a hark back, which we don't often do anymore, I thought that was really nice. A really quick mention. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's called Throwback Thursday, and you'll love that, Gareth. Running through, there's two long pages of tons and tons of cameras that we will just remember from years gone by, and it's really good fun.
Cool.
So,
I'll have a look at it.
yes, my first bargain basement item is TicWatch Pro 5, which has been reduced from £309 to £200. And I think that's probably because they brought out a new one. What's it called?
I can't remember what they call it.
I can't remember now. Anyway, there's an enhanced TicWatch Pro 5 that you can buy. So presumably that's why it's been reduced. But yeah, TicWatch Pro 5 is well spoken about. I've actually got one here, and I don't use it enough, and I must try because some kindly soul sent it in to me. So thank you to them again. I'll try.
Yeah. I had the TicWatch Pro 5 for a while as well. I really liked it. I can't remember why I stopped using it, though. It was a while ago.
Probably because it was so big. That's one thing I didn't like about it. It's massive.
Oh, no, yeah, I think I wasn't using it as much as I should. I'd forget to put it on in the morning and things like that. I just decided, no. Every time I do get a smartwatch, I go, I don't need it, really.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't do the things that I wanted to do. That's what it was. I wanted to be able to skip music tracks and things with it on YouTube Music, but it wouldn't let me do that.
Really?
And I couldn't interact with Google Home as easy. This was a while ago.
Okay.
But maybe they've changed their tune now.
Moving on Wear OS, you now have an option to automatically show the media player controls. So when you set the watch up, you throw that switch, and then whenever you've got something connected to YouTube Music or any other player, it comes automatically up on the watch, and you get those music controls. Yes.
Ah, right, okay. So maybe it might be worth taking a second look at it. Probably won't, but fine. Okay, next up is the Crucial T500 2TB SSD. This is a PCI Gen 4 NVMe M.2 for internal gaming. It's primarily targeted at the PlayStation 5, but it will obviously work on any desktop that can take M.2 NVMe's. This does up to 7,400 megabytes per second. It's compatible with laptops and desktops and is just a good all-round, well-recognized solid-state drive for anyone who wants one. And it's dropped in price for 2 terabytes from £180 down to £150 and 98p on Amazon currently. And it's got a big chunky heatsink on it as well, just to keep things nice and cool. Looks really nice. I do fancy one of these. It would be nice to throw it into the PlayStation 5 and away you go.
Crucial are doing more and more stuff, aren't they?
They are. Crucially, they're branded Crucial.
It's a crucial point that you make.
Terribly.
Another crucial
Terribly.
point that I'm going to make is that the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE is reduced at the moment from 599 to 449. It is only the 128 gigabyte version. Actually, I'm not sure if there is a 256. Oh, yes, there is. What's the is the 256 reduced as well? Oh yeah, it is. There's £100 off the 256 as well. So and various colours and what have you. So yeah, the Galaxy S23 FE, the fan edition, is reduced.
Very good. Are you getting payments on that at all?
No, actually, my Amazon payments have completely dried up now. It's really odd. We've said before it. They seem to go through phases. Anything I look at now, there's never any payments offered to me.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I haven't had them in a long time either.
Yeah.
But I knew that Samsung generally did have them for a good long
yeah.
while. But all right, moving on to the Tapo indoor camera. This is a security camera it's a Wi-Fi camera, and it does 2K. It's got a 3 megapixel sensor inside of it. It does 360 degrees and can be used for baby and pet detection, motion, and that kind of thing. CCTV. It has AI built into it as well, which I don't really believe is quite true. It's got smart motion detection and tracking, does night vision quite nicely, and it works with Alexa and Google Home, and it's dropped in price from £40 down to £23.99, which I think is quite a good little option. I quite like the Tapo brand, so I would heartily recommend this to anyone who's wanting a cheap little camera, especially if you're going on holiday this summer away from the rain that is just pummeling the roof of the house at the moment. Yeah, you could grab one of these and watch your house and see yourself getting burgled if you need it.
Nice. I've got a Tapo a bunch of smart plugs, so I've already got the app installed on my phone. That would be a good idea for me, certainly, and it's nice and cheap. Well done, good find. Right, I'm back on Samsung. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a Samsung week. You may have noticed. The Galaxy Smart Tag 2s, which I use, I got a pack of 4 of them. I bought mine second hand, actually, and they work perfectly well. But the brand new pack of 4 here, 70 quid. It was 80 quid, so 10 quid off. And they have been reduced, not by a huge amount, but you save a tenner. And they work just brilliantly well, tracking my stuff.
So that's 4 for 70 quid. That's pretty good.
It is.
12% off. Nice. And you can get little protective cases for them too.
I can't see the point of those protective cases. I was looking at those the other day and thinking, why would you want protective cases from them? Because if you want to put it on a key ring, then it's got a whacking great big hole in it anyway. So why would you then want to put it inside something else and then another ring?
Well, I think the dangly bit of the key ring would work quite well with this. I wouldn't want this on my key ring using the hole that's already there.
Wouldn't you?
No.
That's what I've done.
Yeah. But also the protective cases look really nice. They're silicone protective ones, and I'd like they're £9 for 4 of them. So I'd like some sort of protective case for the silicone protective case. I don't want the silicone protective case getting damaged.
Very good. Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, if you're interested in dabbling in the world of Linux, as I am repeatedly going to just bash out more and more, you could buy yourself a SanDisk 256 Ultra Fit USB 3.2 flash drive, which gives you up to 400 megabytes per second read speeds. It's been dropped in price from £52 down to £19.99 for 256 gigabytes, and you can install Linux on that and then test it out on your system and see how you fancy. There's loads of space to be able to install a bunch of bits and pieces and have a good old rollick there, and I suppose you could use it for other stuff as well, like storing media and things if you need to, or stick it in the side of your laptop for a little bit of extra storage. These SanDisk ones are very low profile, but there still is a jutty out bit, so I wouldn't recommend keeping it in your laptop all the time.
Only just.
But yeah, these are really good looking little handy USB sticks, and at £19.99p, you'd be mad not to buy one of these. Mad, I tell you.
You may remember I bought the 512 gigabyte version, which is that on special? No, it's not on special. £37 that one is.
Yes.
But I had this computer which had only got a internal drive of 512 gigabytes, and I wanted another 512. And so I stuck this in there, and it's just sat there. Even though you say it sticks out a bit, and you wouldn't want to keep it in there. Well, I have, and it's just stayed there the whole time, and it doesn't annoy me. It sticks out less than the USB-C, the USB-A does for my mouse, and it just works brilliantly. Just plug and play. Another good shout from you, really. It's a really good way of extending your storage.
Yeah, they are very nice, but if you're taking it, if you've got a laptop that you're taking with you an awful lot, I would be wary of it.
Okay.
I don't like things sticking out of the side of the laptop, so I've got one on my Chromebook and I always take it out because I've hit it in the past. I even have a micro SD card stuck in the side of my Chromebook, and it just sits out 1 millimeter, and whenever I put it into my bag, I quite frequently hit it and it pings out across the room. Like, oh no!
Yeah.
All right, last one.
Last one is a page of HMD stroke Nokia phones mostly. HMD have taken over the Nokia brand pretty much, and so they're knocking out some of the old Nokia branded phones on the cheap. Highlight the XR20, which has been reduced to £199. When that first came out, I think it was 400. No, it was it was 499, I think, and that's 199 now. It's still got another update to come in terms of OS system stuff, so that's pretty good. And if you buy the exact same phone but branded HMD, it's a load more money. You can also buy that phone with a bundled pair of earbuds if you want a bundled pair of earbuds, Nokia Go earbuds 2, and that's $229.99, which is another bit of a bargain. But yeah, have a look at that page if anyone's interested in possibly picking up something. The Nokia XR21, which was the updated version of the XR20, surprisingly, that's been reduced as well, and the X30 is still there. I always fancied an X30. Never got round to it, but that was at one time their kind of flagship device. Be interesting to see where HMD goes with all this Pulse stuff and whatever else they're doing. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good looking stuff there. All right, well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.uk. You can find me on Twitter as well, at Gareth Miles, GarethMyles. I also have a Mastodon too, and I've got my GarethMiles.com. Ted, where can they find you?
I mostly hanging out in our MeWe group, but tedsalmon.com is where you'll find links to all of those MeWe groups, as well as the audio podcasts that we and the team do. We had a Whatever Works out this week, so have a listen out for that. And this coming week we've got a projector room again. Gareth, I and Alan, or should I say Gareth, Alan and I, will be talking about film, cinema and TV. And of course every weekend there's PSC with me and Steve, so do check that out. If you want to buy me a coffee in the meantime, you can do that, and it's at paypal.me/Ted Salmon, for which I thank you very much for your support.
It's Steve and I, by the way. That would be the correct way to pronounce that. Yeah. All right, well, take care, and we'll speak to you all next week. Or 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time.
Bye.